Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundless success to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
We are lighting the candle, a world that works. I'm Bill Correll, and I am so excited today. In addition to my partner in crime, who I lovingly call my twin, Jan Jeremias, we also are going to be graced with the company of LaChelle Adkins. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself so we can get started here. And just to, by way of reintroduction, I think we're up to, I don't know, what is it, about 185 episodes at this point. I'm just a guy who wants to make a difference in the world, and I do that by talking to people. And I'm so happy to be here with Jan. And Jan, would you like to do a brief introduction, and then we'll turn the floor over to LaChelle so she can start to warm up our crowd.
Okay, yeah, you got it. Yeah, so happy to be here with you both. I am a health and wellness coach. My vision and mission is very similar to Bill's. I want to make a difference in the world. My goal is to empower people. That's really what I love to do, for people to feel empowered in their own health and wellness journey, whatever that looks like for them. So that is my mission and purpose, and whether that be for people or pets.
Perfect. Miss LaChelle?
Well, first, I want to thank you both for having me on as a guest. And I really noticed the connection with us all kind of being in alignment with that same mission to be able to help other people. But I am known as America's Supermom. My husband and I have 15 children. And I have overcome 13 years of depression and 3 hospitalizations. So I'm passionate about mental wellness, and my zeal and excitement for being able to finally transform from a victim mindset to realizing that I'm an overcomer has led me to many spaces to share about my story and to help other people avoid a lot of the trauma or bad decisions that I made, whether it be not getting enough sleep, muting my voice, and just a number of things that now I'm passionate about sharing with other people. And it has kind of catapulted me to a media space. So now I am passionate about using different forms of media to connect with people, to tell my story, whether it's through books, speaking, or television, because I'm now a TV producer. So I'm excited to be here today and looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. We're just so excited to have you. The backbone of our conversation for going on 4 years now has been empowerment. And it's all about what do we do when we get into situations where the world is so much bigger than we are right now? And how do we get back on our feet again and all that? And don't worry about Jan. She'll poof every once in a while, but she'll be back.
Okay.
So we are live in prime time, and we just keep going. So
amen. I agree.
You mind if I ask you a couple of questions? Because I think this is really appropriate, and I want to make sure that we're getting the best value, for our listeners and for me personally, because I'm very impressed that something that would probably be diagnosed as being chronic and maybe for the rest of your life. Depression is not something
Mhm.
that's easily overcome. And
Mhm.
if you could, maybe share some insights of, because we do talk about, you get stopped in life, and sometimes it's hard to get started again. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have a lot of people. Well, obviously, if you've got 15 kids, a lot of people around you that are they're very interested in mom getting a super mom again, right?
Yeah. Well, I the reason why I'm passionate about it is because depression in my journey didn't look like what I thought it was supposed to look like. So when I thought of depression, it was somebody who stays in bed, doesn't want to get up, no motivation. So the fact that I was doing a lot of things, it just wasn't even on my radar that
Yeah.
it looks different for different people. But my journey was more um self-inflicted, I would say. That's the best way that I could put it, because I wasn't active with self-care. I had a mindset of always putting other people before myself, because I had this passion for always being the one who was needed, that provided some kind of value. So I would be doing these things even at the expense of my own health. And so it was that, with, feeling like I had to help, putting 90 things on my plate when I only had 2 or 3 hours to get it done. Just crazy stuff when I look back now, but I needed that because I was an only child, and I was raised as a high performer all through my academic career, with being in gifted classes and honors and honor roll, whatever. That was how I got my feedback. So I had grown used to constantly feeling that recognition, and that was something that I craved. And so that was the issue, was that I felt as a stay-home mom, that there was not a lot of recognition for that. So it's like, where do I fit in? What's my value? So a lot of that personal struggle, I think, is really what my journey through depression was all about.
Yeah. Yeah. Jan, anything sound familiar?
Oh, no, nothing. Absolutely nothing as I'm nodding here. I think for whatever reason, and sorry, it bounced me out, so I came
Mhm.
back in.
We knew you'd be back.
Yeah, yes, I couldn't help myself. But yeah, sounds so similar to me. Maybe for different reasons, and in a way, a different manifestation. I was always kind of this kid who was outside the box and wanted to felt the need for whatever reason that I should be like everybody else and and so therefore I think I measured fitting in and being loved with being
Mhm.
successful, and the more successful I was, the more I was going to be loved.
Mhm.
So the umpteen degrees and the whatever the scholastic achievement was my way and my measurement then of success, which became very wrapped up in that. And so
Mhm.
so all of a sudden I kind of placed myself in situations that were very high pressure and high academic excellence and all these other things, and not necessarily happy by any means. But then also at the time, I don't think I felt secure enough to be able to kind of stop it, to
Mhm.
sit there and say, this isn't what I want. This isn't, like, I'm not happy. But I
Mhm.
think the path that LaChelle describes sounds all too familiar.
Well, the interesting part of it, while you were speaking, Lachelle, I was reminded of an old Pogo comic strip from my youth, where one character is saying to the other, "We have met the enemy, and they is us."
That's
So
Amen.
yeah, the
Amen.
other part too is that I think is this really kind of powerful for moving the conversation a little bit ahead. For people that are listening, and for me too. I mean, I'm always speaking for myself first because obviously I don't know anybody else who's listening, but I know you're out there. What I'm thinking is that how it presented, and so there's a clinical definition of of all things, that are not feeling good about this, being, well, the word depression actually is self describing in some ways, but they don't tell you that it will present in different cases in a different fashion. But it just seems like there's something wrong around here, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
You can't escape that feeling of there's something wrong around here.
Yeah, and I think, the my journey, the fact that I believe it lasted so long, is this mindset that, I'm just a high achiever. It's got to be done. If nobody else is doing it, then I'll do it. So
Right.
a lot of it, I think, I was on autopilot and numb to a lot of things. It's not like people were not giving me compliments or telling me things that I was doing right, recognizing a lot of these things, but my own voice was louder than anybody else's. So you could give me a compliment and it just is not resonating because in the back of that compliment is, yeah, but if they knew that, your kids went to school and, they didn't make their bed up or that you have a sink full of dishes in the sink, would they really be giving you that compliment? If they knew that. So it was the personal bullying that I was doing to myself based on my own unrealistic expectations of what I should be doing every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That yeah, but is the great negator.
Mhm.
It's how you continue to feel safe in your comfortable uncomfortableness. That
Mhm.
what if they're right, and what if I really do, do things right every once in a while when I'm pretty damn sure I don't.
Mhm.
What would that mean, and what would that put at risk? And your sense of so-called control, which I think at some point when we just surrender, we kind of realize that that is just the biggest myth ever. Nobody controls anything except for the man upstairs, or that group of people upstairs, whoever they may be for you. But
Mhm.
at the same time, so you're in a tailspin for all this period of time. It's not really registering with you that, gee whiz, this might be depression. Or how did you start to address that? And how did you pull yourself out and put yourself back in charge of your life again to some
Well,
degree?
I think, again, it was a cycle. It wasn't until my third hospitalization that I realized when I got home that it was a pattern. There was just this period of time where we would modify things around our household and eventually, old habits would reoccur.
Yeah.
A lot of this, like I said, for me, I believe was self inflicted. It was, me having these unrealistic expectations, trying to be all things to all people, so many things that I was just not really in the right frame of mind to even think about. But after the last hospitalization, I realized, okay, this is a pattern. If I don't do anything different, this is going to be reoccurring. And I just didn't want that.
Yeah.
So it was at that time that I just really wanted to find out, what was the cause of a lot of this? Uh, how could I fix it? And so I really didn't know who I was during this period of depression. You could ask me what my favorite color was, and I would not even know because I was so conscious of always looking to other people that I just didn't take time for myself.
Yeah.
It was just this autopilot situation. So I got off social media, I stopped watching the news, and I really got back to what made me feel certain ways and what I thought about things. And I really started taking that journey to know myself more. And I think, I really didn't have the courage to do this until I learned to forgive myself uh, more so than anybody else. Because, yeah, I could forgive people for some of the things that I thought they might have done, or, I was blaming my husband and kids for a lot of my situation. But when I learned to forgive myself, that was when I had the space to observe a lot of the things that it wasn't anybody else doing these things to me, it was myself. And so that's when things started to change.
Jan?
Oh my gosh, so powerful. No, really, I love so many of what you shared, LaChelle. Just this idea of not looking to the outside world for sort of verification or acknowledgement. And it wasn't even acknowledgement. It was like, because I did something similar. I kind of filtered out that social media. I always tell people, please call me and tell me what's going on because I don't watch the news and I probably won't know. It was just, my way of kind of sheltering and kind of not even a protection, but nurturing myself that
And
I needed. And then the last thing that you shared that I actually really love, and that was the idea of forgiveness. Because I think that many people don't think about forgiving themselves.
mhm,
We're always focused on forgiving other people for what they've done to us, quote unquote. But I
mhm,
don't know if we focus on forgiving ourselves and then actually giving ourselves a little compassion, which
mhm,
was huge for me. It was that kind of, which I look at like your journey is so what you shared so similarly. It's just this idea of like that whole idea if you were talking to a friend, would you be that like would you offer them compassion for the situation they're in? And could you consider yourself as that friend, or that child? Yeah, which I'm sure you really can relate to a lot with having 15. That 50 having 15.
yeah. That is so true. I think, we get caught up with a lot of people providing what we need when we can do it for ourselves. For years, I just learned, I was thinking that filling up my cup was helping other people. Oh, that's going to fill my cup up. But, I realized that I need to fill my cup up so that I can help other people. So that's only something that I could do. I made a mission for myself after that last hospitalization that I wanted to be happy every day. And so I went through and thought about it. How can I be happy? What is something that I would like to do? For me, that was a game changer because I realized that I could change my state at any time by me choosing to be happy. Now, everything around me is not always happy. I mean, I have kids that, don't come in at curfew like they're supposed to, and or don't do their chores, or they're not focused in school. These things can happen, even deaths in our family. But it comes from a different place when you choose the filter that you want everything to go through. And so you realize that there's a period of responding to some of these things that, you know, we're human. We're going to have sadness. We're going to have, being upset, frustrated, or whatever, but we just don't have to live there. It's a part of the journey, but we don't have to get stuck there.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a game changer, realizing that, I can choose to put this down at any time and pick back up happiness. And so for me, that was a game changer.
No doubt about it. And when you're thinking in terms of a state change, for a lot of people, they're not quite sure what that means. Maybe a little bit of, literally, if you consider yourself being in the frozen north of Maine in the middle of January and you want to be warm, you can go to Florida. Okay. We can do stuff like that in the physical world. But then there's this opportunity to, how do we do that, in our thinking? How do we do that, in our day to day lives? And what it really comes down to is committing to mastering a discipline and failing until it actually works, to where you can say, uh, I know that what I can presence will disappear and what
Mhm,
I resist will persist. So
mhm,
those things that I looked around, and said, I don't like that they're here. And the more I fought with them, the bigger they got, the more of my time they took, and the more there was to, you know, be inauthentically avoiding all the time.
mhm,
However, if I ever sat down for a minute and said, starting with Jan's question of, I'm doing this. Can I forgive myself for doing it? And if I can, then perhaps I can actually get into what is going on here. If it were a color, what color would it be? If it were a taste, what would it taste like? How big is it? What's its temperature? And watch it slowly become clear, and then watch it completely disappear. And
Mhm.
so that state change wasn't like a Tony Robbins snap your finger and go back to what you meditated about, although that works for a lot of people. Didn't work
Yeah.
for me all that well. I took that technology and I kind of made it my own a little bit. And in the
Mhm.
90s, when I was playing Nintendo with nieces and nephews and kids, I just like invented this reset button in my head that, if I hit this reset button, whatever I was doing would stop. I'd get a new Mario and get to start that thing over and jump for the mushrooms again.
Mhm.
And so mechanically, there's different kinds of things that I attempted to do, and the ones that have stuck around I found to be pretty useful for me, except for the
Mhm.
last 3 years, maybe 4 years, since COVID's onset.
Mhm.
And I got completely lost. I knew I was depressed, and I was choosing depression. I was really choosing to not give a damn. I was choosing not to be that guy that has to always make the difference out in the world. And I didn't know who to talk to or how to get some support for what I was feeling and doing, because I kind of thought everybody else was going through the same stuff.
Mhm.
And what I found out at some point in time was I just got disgusted with who I was being and just said, that's enough,
Mhm.
you know?
It's true. Well, and I think when we learn that we are the only one that can do that for ourselves. When
Yes.
we talk about weight loss, nobody can go to the gym for us, right? And as much as we would love to have that trainer, okay, you train for me and I get the benefit of losing the weight, it just doesn't work like that. And the things that you were saying, it has to be a practice. I don't think we're taught a lot of this around navigating our emotions. And a lot of this is talk that we just do not have access to. And a lot of times, a lot of people aren't talking to a therapist or a counselor on a regular basis. This is something that happens, God forbid, if you go through depression or PTSD or some of these other things. When I think a lot of that could be avoided if we did have these conversations, especially with our youth, and, really helping them, because your belief system is a strong trigger to a lot of these issues that you might incur later on.
Yeah.
The fact that, you believe certain things, understanding that from a very young age is important, because that determines your behavior. If you don't believe it could happen for you, you sometimes don't even dream or have aspirations for certain things because you just think it's not possible, you know?
It's just how it is, you know?
Hmm.
And what I love that you're saying, and I can't wait to hear what Jan has to say about the ups and the downs, and how familiar it feels. And so the undistinguished blood and guts physical world that just goes on around you, that you think this is just how it is, that needs to be challenged. It needs to be disrupted. And you need to become a really powerful disruptor in terms of what's keeping you at rest, if you want to be in motion. And for me, it was always about compressing the amount of time that I was offline, so that it was not taking me offline for indeterminate long periods of time.
Hmm.
um, and I was really good at that before 2020. I mean, I was good at helping other people, being a professional life and business coach. um, and that was my job, right?
Hmm.
Learn mindfulness, being present, accepting what is, exactly how it is. The acceptance portion of that is the big deal in terms of having access to making any kind of a difference for yourself, for me. um, and the forgiveness part of it, all those things, after it's been handled, I forget that.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
there's this kind of like automation that kicks in. uh, if it's working well, I'm back in charge, pointing myself in a direction. Even if I'm going to get bopped in the head with a 2x4, at least I'm moving, which I consider to be a good thing for me. And you know what I'm saying, Jan?
Yeah, I mean, some I totally resonate with, and some I know for myself, and that's who I speak from. And then people I know, it was not the feeling that everybody else was depressed. It was feeling very isolated and alone, like I was the only one in the world who felt like this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And for whatever beliefs that you have growing up, like for me, the constant message of you shouldn't feel like that. And so, me thinking to myself that what I was feeling, what I was going through was wrong and I shouldn't feel, and sort of that denial of like, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to feel like that. Put it away. You're not supposed to feel like that. And
Hmm.
so compartmentalizing myself that it's exhausting. I mean, that's just another,
Mhm.
like when you talk about like, like, I mean, sheer exhaustion, because it takes a lot of energy to keep things at bay and to only show one side of yourself, whatever that is. I mean, it's so draining. And then all of a sudden, it's basically you can't do anymore, and everything spills out because it's like because it's sort of like the moat wall has given out, and all of a sudden the dam has broke, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So true.
But I think that for me, it was that kind of attitude, and I think what happened was the more in yoga we talk a lot about, I always start a class, I'll say invite all the parts of yourself in.
Mm,
And I think that that was what was key to me. I mean, I think as human beings, we're beautifully messy. We're
mm,
messy, and so
Mhm.
kind of welcoming that mess and realizing that being a mess is like normal, kind of thing was really key, and kind of recognizing that everybody, and the more conversations I have with the vast people that I meet from all over the world, and realizing we're all the same, much more than we're different. We're all the same. We all have we all want the same things. We all have the same kind of, maybe the details are different, regarding our lives, but we're basically all going through the same thing. And then I was listening to something recently with Sharon Salzberg, a wonderful meditation teacher, mindfulness meditation teacher, and she was talking about equanimity. And what is equanimity? And she said it's the ability to hold two states at once or multiple states at the same time.
mm.
And I think that that's really like where I've been spending a lot of time, to realize that I can be having sad feelings, but there are happy things that are going on at the same time. I can be grieving someone and still be in a space, and other parts of me are still, going through love because I'll spend time with friends. And so it's being able to hold those two states at once. And so I think that that's really what I've been focusing a lot on, because I don't think, you know, it's never as black and white as sometimes it feels like.
Mhm.
It's never as dark as you think it is, a
Mm.
lot of the time anyway. And you can't live in a space where everything's totally hunky-dory either. It's just because life happens. So it's like,
Yeah.
can you hold both?
So true. And I totally agree with that because, for me, I have even let go of the word balance, because everybody talks about, oh, work life balance. How do you do it with this? And I feel like, if something is in balance, I think about a teeter totter. If it's completely balanced, you're not going anywhere. You're just sitting there looking at each other. So it's all about the ups and downs of life, but knowing how to navigate through that because it's not a A, B, C, D type of thing. Nothing's linear. It's all jagged, twisted. And so it's about really being able to navigate through that. If you're a captain of a ship, I don't want somebody who doesn't know how to handle the waves and the storms, at the helm if something's going wrong. So we have to recognize that things are going to come. And even if you think about your echocardiogram, you want the lines going up and down. If they're flat line, that means nothing's going on. Nobody's alive.
It's
So I
generally
think we
accepted that's
forget
not
that.
good. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I think we forget that. You know what I mean? We focus too much on the non-reality of life. Non-reality of life is thinking that everything is going to always be happy. It's always going to be sunshine. It's never going to be rain. Once you learn to embrace all the parts of life, it helps you to transition through it so much easier. I had my dad pass away. It's been 9 years now.
Yeah.
He passed away of lung cancer, and he had hospice care prior to his passing, which was at home. And I had such a peace around his passing that I have never even imagined would even happen, because I didn't have to worry about my mom's state of affairs. Everything was done ahead of time. I mean, it was just the ability to be there for each other, all the family come together and just, remember him and have memories and talk about it. It was not this heaviness around finances or, who was going to get what. I mean, a lot of those things. And I think, we make things more problematic because we don't talk about the reality of things. If someone, we all are going to pass away. There's no if to it. You know what I mean? And so why not be prepared for that?
Yeah.
If it's a birth of a child, why are we not equipped for a lot of these things when we know that inevitably it's going to happen?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You want to hear something funny or
What?
cool?
Mm-hmm.
So you and I and Jan too, and probably about 8 billion other people that are alive now, and close to 15 billion that have ever lived, have this thing called language.
Mm-hmm.
And that means, what's coming out of our mouth is either creating the world we're in now, the world we just left, or the world we're going to be in. So the neat part of it is that when you're thinking in terms of balance and compartmentalizing,
Mm-hmm.
our culture from an early age, the message that I got was, you can never let anybody see you cry, you know, and it's okay to do this here, but don't do it in church. It's okay to do this in school. So you've got this set of behaviors, where there's like this constant truth check to find out if I'm behaving appropriately everywhere that I am. And then finally, it dawned on me when I was about 40 years old. Hey, what if I just integrate all of this horse manure and, move into being just an integrated, authentic human being where I don't have to even understand what the definition of authentic is, but I just kind of react to the situations and count on myself to be enough to pull it off?
Amen.
And that just bought me a lot more room. My closet turned into like a football stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I could say things without fear of what people would react to. And I could make it comedic or I could make it very powerful and have it land, like a haymaker punch, in a room full of 600 people. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
how I did that was by responding to their reaction to what I said, as opposed to the next thing I thought I should say before I got
Mm-hmm.
on stage. Right. So the whole world, as a very famous author once said, all the world's a stage, and
Mm-hmm.
all the people players. And so the neat part of that is that there's no need to have strategies, there's no need to have techniques and tactics and that sort of thing, but we're always buying self-help books that swear to the good Lord above that these are the 5 things that are going to make you a superhuman being and retire a billionaire, and everyone will love you, guaranteed, or your money back, all 12.95 of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe, but I don't know. I bought a lot of those things for 12.95 between the time I was 30 and 45 years old. And what I pulled from each one of them were just more things for me to ask questions about.
Mm-hmm.
When I finally got to the point where I realized that I did not recognize my uh, back pocket, shall we say, and a hole in the ground, I didn't know the difference between those two things, was when I really had the opportunity to kind of grow up, you know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being what other people thought, I should be, or we'll never know what they're really thinking, right? Because
Exactly.
most of the time they weren't thinking about me, you know,
It's
all that
so
time
true.
I thought they were.
I think that is powerful because we project what people are thinking based on what we're thinking. right?
100%.
Because how do we even know if we're not going to ask them, we don't know. And I love what you said about the power of questions, because it is taking the time to know what's appropriate in the moment, learning to be present. One of the things that happened for me was, I was compartmentalizing myself all the time, whether I was at a function as an officer's wife or a pastor's wife or a mom of 15 or a daughter that's the only child. I mean, it was always kind of like feeling like, what am I supposed to say in this situation? But when I learned to just show up as myself, it didn't matter where I was the same. And for me, I tell people I saved so much time because I feel like before I would have to have this mental preparation.
Yeah.
It's like you have to get in character, every time you go somewhere. But now it's like, you know what? I just show up, whatever happens. If I have a green screen behind me, or, if I have on lipstick or don't have on lipstick, whatever, it's just me. And it's not until you take time to really know yourself, I think, that you can show up that way and understand that it's not about, what I have on, what color earrings I've got on. It's not about that. It's about what I bring to the conversation or the situation in real time.
Well, I think that I love what you shared, LaChelle, especially this last part, because I think when you show up as you are and you're respectful, like,
Mhm.
you're not dishonoring or disrespecting anybody by doing so. One
Yeah.
is if somebody realizes, that you're coming basically from the heart, that um, they don't perceive you as a threat,
Mm.
and they don't look at you in a fearful way. I mean, let's say I have personal, like, experiences with this. And I think that that's really what it was for me. And there was a point where I wasn't ready to do that, that I was not, and I distanced myself from certain people because of that, because they looked
Mhm.
at me as a threat and I wasn't kind of confident or secure in who I was enough to be able to show up as I was,
Mhm.
and then being able to show up as I was and eventually doing it in a very respectful way. And then
Mhm.
also switching from this idea for me and them, as viewing them as me and them. So they were being judgmental of me, and they were. But when I turned around and looked at it, I was really being just as judgmental back,
Mm.
and being totally honest with myself and sort of seeing that. It was like, oh, they're judging me for who I am, but I'm also judging them for who they are. And
Mhm.
just stepping back and saying, okay, and that's when, that's what I mean by showing up with honor and respect,
Mhm.
where we don't necessarily have to agree on everything,
Mhm.
but that's okay. And
Mhm.
yes, I still protect myself in certain ways. Like, people know, like, I'm in those situations, I can be honest, and I'm usually very, authentic and vulnerable. That's part of a lot of those people are my family. And I have to
Mhm.
literally like check in and say, okay, well, I can handle about 5 hours or six, or 4 days or 3 days. And then I have to go home to my cocoon and my dog and my, my friends and my pets or whatever, and kind of nourish myself and say, okay, but I've learned how to navigate that situation. And I think they,
Mhm.
value me now a lot more than they used to, because they appreciate that. Like, they realize I'm not a threat,
Yeah.
to them and what they believe.
I love that because I think, when we're able to remove judgment, that's a game changer, because I've learned through language, as you were talking about earlier, Bill, um, to listen to what people are saying. And when you do that, you can remove judgment because you can ask questions around what they're saying. And I've learned just with my own journey how much I have been integrated into a lot of things that I didn't necessarily believe, but it was like, because I didn't even think to ask questions or even believe that I could choose something different, I just was integrated into it, but I read the book, The Four Agreements, and that really opened my eyes to realize that, a lot of times we are a part of things because we just have been conditioned to be that way. We haven't really taken the time to even ask ourselves, do I believe this? Is this serving me to even keep going on this road? And so when you hear people speak a lot of times, their language will tell you, what they believe and how they believe, or if they're confused about what they believe. I think we can't be afraid to ask questions because questions give us a lot of insight. And it's not for judgment, but, I learned that I align and love to be around people that challenge me to think differently. That's just something that is really just feeding my soul. So if I ask a couple questions and people are okay with following what everybody else is doing, I know, what, this is a environment I don't need to hang in very long. You know what I'm saying? I just need to, bow out quietly and go a different direction. But again, it's around language, so I love that that was mentioned because that judgment piece is huge. And for me, I still am not watching the news. I don't really listen to a lot of radio or watch TV because that kind of keeps me in a space to where I have the capacity to be more present with people and not allow other people's beliefs to inhibit my ability to learn something different or to let go of something. I think, we hear a lot of news that's negative, and hearing that all the time, it it breeds a scarcity mindset. It's hard to think in abundance when you're listening to negativity all the time.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I can hear abundance and I gravitate towards it, because when you're in that space, you recognize that everybody has a flaw, or, we're all just trying to grow and get better. Nobody's perfect, so certain things that, you'll learn that, okay, this person is just dealing with a mindset. And I know because I've been there. I was, as a high achiever, I believe, although a lot of people think, oh, that's success, but you have this mindset that there's only so many people at the top. It's very competitive. You don't want to share your ideas. You're afraid somebody's going to take them. I mean, all that is just scarcity, fear, and
Yeah.
the energy is different. And I just choose not to be there anymore.
And I love this when you said ask questions, because that's what I tell people all the time. Like they're in a space of like, well, how do you feel? And I think people, we're not even trained to ask those questions.
Mm-mm.
We're trained to get up and go, like create your to do list and get things done. And don't even ask those questions. It's like, so, I love to talk to people about like when you get up in the morning, like, do you ask yourself, like, how do you feel? What do you need that day? Like, like those kind of things, like, what's going to make you happy? What can you do one thing for yourself today that's maybe would set today apart from any other day? Like those types of things, because I don't think that's not something we're taught at all.
Not at all. And I
When
love it because it's empowering what you're saying. We have gotten to the point to where it's like, oh, if this happens, it's a good day. If I win the lottery, it's a good day. If I get a new car, if I do all this stuff. And when you learn to come within and decide for yourself what's going to make a good day for you, that's where the power is.
Yeah, being amazed is a really great habit, training yourself to appreciate where there's really nothing good that seems to be happening. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can turn that into a belly laugh, like, holy mackerel, what was I attached to when this day I walked past some really cool things. I'm going to go back and check that out again. And there's this innate programming that I'm not sure that all cultures share, but ours definitely does. The Western culture is all about being right, okay? And forgetting you made that decision that the way to live your life is to be right. That basically means you have an answer to every situation that you get in before you get any information about what it was really going on. And we also have to protect that being right, from all assaults, both foreign and domestic. If somebody comes at us with their cockamamie ideas that we just think, I have no idea what kind of a human being would say things like that or believe that sort of thing, and whatever. But the point is that having the courage, to set your own belief aside, noticing that it is a habit and it's not the truth, and you're just being right because that's how you stay alive.
Mhm.
Uh, Tell me more about that. What makes you feel that way? What were the things that you heard that I haven't heard? I'd love to hear what you got. When we can just like really inquire what's going on behind someone, the decisions they're making, how they're behaving. The those are mostly going to be people that are not turning off the news, okay? And we have to do one of two things. And I don't think avoiding people is part of my lifestyle at all. I'm not
Mm,
about that. That's not who I am. And so I've found that it challenges me in certain instances um, to allow people to fully express. And of course, I will ask the next question and the next question because I want to know how deep their knowledge is and how much they're just parroting things that they don't realize have been planted there by someone else. And in some cases it has this really cool benefit, which either a I get more information and I can re-examine my thoughts and what I consider to be right and good, um, or b they get to a point where they hear something. In a lot of times people don't say out loud what they would say if someone said, tell me more about that. It's just going on in their head. And when they
mm,
do say it out loud sometimes, like it's like the girl who told me she was ugly, you know?
mm,
And I said, okay, so I guess that's one approach. What makes you think you're ugly? She said, well, my dad used to call me ugly when I was 5. And I just decided that's who I was going to be for the rest of my life. And I said, do me a favor, just for grins, humor me. There's a mirror over there on that chest. Would you just go stand in front of it for a moment for me? Just look for a minute. Just kind of be with yourself for a minute or two. And then she broke down and she just started crying. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, Bill, I honest to God don't know, but I've never really looked at my face before, you know? And I said, well, what do you see now? She said, I wouldn't call me ugly. And I said, what would you call yourself? And she said, sad, maybe feeling a little bit like I missed out on life. And I said, do me a favor, keep looking in the mirror. Now I want you to smile. And I said, what do you see? And she broke out into laughter. And she said, you know what, damn it, I'm a beautiful woman.
that is
And
all.
I said, have you ever said that before? She said, I would never say it alone. And she just came over and she was laughing uproariously and she gave me the biggest hug and she would not let go.
Mm,
And this was one of my employees. It's like,
mhm.
what did I do that day? Did I give her an opportunity to create some more space for herself? I didn't do anything at all except for ask her questions. So that's the game for me in life, is to go into a situation. Jan, you're smiling. I am such an a-hole when it comes to this, wanting to help people get some more space in life for themselves, including me. Because I'll tell you, there is an ulterior motive, LaChelle. That is, we all win when someone wins. You know what I mean?
Amen. Amen.
And there's
I
nothing
love
better.
that. Hmm.
A good friend of ours, we talk about this thing being a human being, and he says, well, we pretty much suck at it. So if you can come to grips with that and say, I'm not very good at this thing called life, and what if I just play with that a little bit? Let's just go
Mhm.
see what kind of day that brings, you know?
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, and I think, it also sets the tone because, it's not about being perfect. It's about, for me, it's being present.
yeah,
I tell people a lot for in my household, chaos is the norm and peace is what I practice because things are going to get chaotic. Not everybody's on the same page to even have the aptitude to know what someone may need at a certain time. So expecting that, I think, is kind of crazy. But I love that part that you said about the questions because, my biggest joy is seeing myself in people that I normally would not have thought I've seen myself.
yeah,
Having that commonality because society has programmed us to think, okay, you can't connect with the men because they don't understand women or the cultures or because of the color of our skin. But when you're present, it's like, okay, wait a minute. I felt that vibration. Something about that is familiar, and it never would have happened if I didn't learn to be present because it happens with people I would not have put myself with for any stretch of the imagination. So I have this book here. Um, this I got this yesterday. It's called Moments Worth Remembering. A gentleman made this for me, a connection through Facebook. I think is how we got connected. But he's like 27. And so he made this book with different people in my family or connections that wrote certain letters of gratitude about me being in their life. And I met him probably maybe 4 years ago. It was like during the pandemic. And he was telling me his story about how uh, he's Russian, but he was adopted by an American family because he emancipated himself or he put himself in an orphanage. I want to say like at the age of 9.
wow,
And I was so like, oh my goodness, 9 years old. How did you even know? It was this whole thing. And he started hosting these things called Courageous Conversations. So on Saturdays, we would meet for like a couple hours. He would have a question, and we'd all from all different ages, walks of life, cultures, we'd come together on Zoom and we would learn the power of questions. And it has just been a game changer for my life. And I just think so many people that I've further been able to connect to because it's like a muscle. You have to learn to ask questions. You have to learn to overcome that uncomfortability about, okay, are they going to think I'm crazy if I ask them this? It's this whole thing that goes on in my head. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So I love that you brought all that up.
yeah. You know who John Wooden is, right?
Yeah.
Very, very famous winning basketball coach
Mm-hmm.
for UCLA Bruins. And he had produced, I think, during his tenure up to that time, more professional athletes than probably any other coach, in any discipline. And one of my favorite quotes of his was, "What you learn after you know everything, that's what's important."
Mm.
You know, and I've always loved that. And the other thing that I loved about him, the book that I read when I was, I don't know, maybe 14, 15 years old in junior high school, whatever it was, he said, I never talked about winning. I didn't talk about it in the locker room. I didn't talk about it on the court. I didn't talk about it on the street. I didn't talk about it in the classroom. All I ever talked about was be the best you possibly can today, just for today.
Mm.
And he said, funny enough, he said, for a lot of the right people, that was the best coaching I could ever give them. The skills coaching is one thing, but You know, Vince Lombardi, another great coach, he was all about the win. You know, winning
Mm-hmm.
is not it's not the best thing. It's the only thing. You know, and
Mm,
so there's a lot of different ways to communicate with people and get the best out of them. Both of those guys, you know, reached pretty much the epitome of you know of what it is to be a coach and a leader. Um,
mm-hmm.
Turns out Lombardi was not a very good athlete. I don't know much about John Wooden. He probably played some ball, but dealing with human beings and allowing them to kind of unconceal the genius, you know, and the giant inside is that's what a coach is. It's not telling people how to do things. It's like showing them the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity and staying with them until they get good at it on their own. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit of small stuff here and there, you know. Step back before you take that three-pointer. See if that makes it a little bit easier for you to push off, you know, just a little thing like that.
Mm-hmm. I love that because, the ability to be different is powerful when it comes to how you want to show up. Having that confidence to do what's not popular.
Yes.
I can imagine the pressure, with being a coach. I have some of John's books, but I just think, you have to have that inner confidence because it's not about you. And I tell people, as the coach for myself, I'm not dressed for the game. Okay. So you can't look to me to replace you if you need to sit on the bench. And I think a lot of people get that confused, right? It's the player's game. You're just there to help them learn the hacks or perform at the best that they can with what they have currently, whatever state that may be. And too many people are invested in other people's dreams or aspirations that they have no control over, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. Like, I can't go to the gym for you. So we can sit down and strategize, but there's only so much I can bring to the table that's going to help you be successful, you know.
Jan, you are probably the consummate coach.
um, no,
I
I
don't
think,
mean probably. You are the
oh, I
coach.
am. I think it's helping people to see who they truly are. You know, um, to your point, Bill, with your lovely employee who didn't think, a while back, I did a workshop called Beyond the Lens, and we did mirror work. If you've ever done that, like stood, like sat in front of a mirror for a period of time, looking at yourself, and then taking a moment or some moments, minutes, to look in someone else's eyes. And I think the gift of doing something like that is, one is, usually it's the eyes. When they say the eyes are the windows of the soul, that's really what you start to see within yourself. You start to see the deeper parts of yourself beyond the surface. It's beyond whatever your features are, the color of your skin, or whether you're wearing makeup or now makeup that day. And then when you can get to that place, when you look at other people, you look beyond the surface of who they are.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful experience. And one of the things we had everybody do was we had everybody bring a baby picture. And there's something about when you look at a baby picture of yourself,
Mm,
because there's something in it which is pure and innocent. And like for me, I remember after doing, because I have a picture of myself on my dresser that sits there, and I finally looked at it and I realized I had the same spark in my eyes. Like that same curiosity was still there. And it was so like, wow. Like I really, because we think we change so much when really we don't change that much, like the deepest part of ourselves stays the same. And I think that was
mhm,
really kind of profound for me. I was like looking at it, and to have everybody experience that for themselves, because I think that, like, all the messaging that we hear constantly from, like, from the outside world, and then whatever beliefs we have about that internal messaging cloud. I mean, you might say it creates like a fog. In yoga we say there's a fog over the heart. like, like there's
Mm,
like a mist that comes in. And so it's kind of like polishing that mirror of who you are so it becomes
mhm,
clear glass.
mm, that's good. I like that aspect of having the picture. We have a family tradition. We just started it. It's been 3 years now, so this is our third year, where on Christmas Eve, we write a letter to ourselves to open up the following year. And I like that component about the picture because for some people, thinking a year out can be a challenge, but that's just awesome because it definitely puts you in a different energy, I think, in what you would write to yourself by looking at where you've come so far. It just would be different. So I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a kind of another thought, about that experience with that young lady was nothing extraordinary. It was what I wanted in my life every day with different human beings and family members. And sometimes it had an outcome I liked, and sometimes it didn't. You know,
Hmm.
However, I've never given it up, have I, Jan? I mean, you watched me interact with total strangers on the streets of Harlem, and get into who they are, how long they've been here, where they came from, what it's like. And yeah, I'll never see them again, and they'll never see me again. But it's not about that. It's about having a moment with another human being that if there's an opportunity to create intimacy in a world where people say that it's hard to find that, that's not so shabby, is it? Is that okay? So I don't know. I'm a crackpot, and I don't mind being a crackpot, and I don't mind being a leader. Like the bull goose crackpot. It's the thing that we're seeing, and so people always ask me, when I complete my simple questions for 100 people, I always ask, "Do you have any questions of me?" And I, kind of tell, somebody will say, well, why did you start this? How come you're interviewing all of these people? And I, my pat answer is that there was this identity politics thing going on that I was fed up with. And I wanted to find out if people were really predictable in terms of being who they looked like they were,
Mm,
and it goes far beyond that because I haven't thought about this in the moment, but I would want to say a lot more about it because I have two grandchildren that are part Navajo. Uh, my older daughter uh, married a man who's half Navajo, who I absolutely love him and I worship the ground he walks on. He's 450 pounds of love. He's just one of the
mm,
best human beings on the planet. My other daughter was more of a conformist. She just married a 6'7" black man from Brooklyn who was shot through the spine when he was 18 years old. And he was being looked at, by St. John's and a half a dozen other colleges when he was a junior in high school. They were actually seeing, whether or not he would be getting a full ride scholarship, to university to play college ball.
mhm.
And wrong place, wrong time with his cousin. And as the story goes, he's been wheelchair bound. And I have fallen so much in love with that man. He
Wow.
is the best. And the neat part of it is that we haven't always agreed with each other, on a whole lot of different subjects. But it's
Mhm.
funny, as he gets older, I get smarter for some reason. I don't know why that is, but he is a partner in life, now that he's 40 years old. So I know that people, in their own mind are not interested in making other people do what they want them to do. That's just too small a conversation.
Mhm.
So the neat part of doing that, and I do want to have you on, as a guest for for that as well, because I'll tell you what, when it comes right down to it, I don't remember who I've actually had these conversations with, but I do remember how they changed me. You know what I
Amen.
mean?
Mm.
Mhm.
And I
That's
like that part.
beautiful.
I really
Yeah.
do. We're talking
Mhm.
about before, kind of knowing who you are and that sort of thing. Man, I'll tell you what, I just signed up a long time ago for being unrecognizable to myself, you know,
Mhm.
and just to kind of see what that's like. And
Mhm.
I've gotten used to it. It puts some people off, but I'm absolutely fine with them being put off for a little while until they figure out this is really who I am. And
Mhm.
it's their choice whether they want to hang with me or not.
Mhm.
I can be a pain in the you know what, can't I, Jan?
Hmm.
And it's by design, you know? It's because I really do care and I'm willing to go through an uncomfortable conversation today for a lifelong
Mhm.
relationship.
Amen. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
I
Me
think it's
too, by the way. Yeah.
and I think that, I mean, there's obviously, like you're speaking of, like, to me, and I always label that as like wisdom, and some
Mhm.
of that I think, I really do believe it comes with age and maturity, and kind of thing, and depending on who it is in our family, we I mean, for me, it was letting go of the blame game kind of thing, that,
Mhm.
like, blaming other people for my situation or my parents or whatever. And like owning up and saying, okay, well, like, I have a choice and my life is my responsibility kind of thing, just like
Mhm.
my health is my responsibility, or I think people's responsibility, and they shouldn't forfeit that over and donate that over to anybody else. I believe, and so it was once I stepped back and realized that basically we're all just doing the best we can. And whether that be your family or like your parents or your family, they're like, they come with their own whatever stuff, baggage, they're not perfect. And at points, they probably, you blame them, and then they tick you off or whatever. And then you kind of like get over it and you realize they're human beings. And then,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, I look at my relationship with my mom, who we're closer than ever now, and she will tell you that we are best friends. But was it always like that? Hell no. I mean,
Mhm.
there were points in my life where, I blamed her for everything in my life that wasn't
Mhm.
right at the time, kind of thing. And then, I think there are friends like that too, where, you sit there and all of a sudden you blame them or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know, I made that bed, I have to sleep in it kind of thing.
So true.
Yeah. One of
Mhm.
my favorite quotes about wisdom, um, and I rarely think of myself as being in that category, but I do know and recognize that people sometimes like what I have to say. And I can live with that. Uh, but the whole notion of wisdom, where that comes from, is good choices, right? And where do
Mhm.
good choices come from? Experience. And where does experience come from? Well, bad choices.
Bad
So,
choices, exactly.
so again, I kind of like took on, um, since we generally suck at this, and I'll probably never be a great human being, I will strive to be a better than average one. I want to be like Yogi Bear, and
Mhm.
the whole notion being the more frequently that I can fail, the more opportunities I'm going to get for more data points in terms of how to be and how to like fine tune being able to look at a room and read the room before someone speaks or before anyone speaks. And I
Mhm.
will often do that if I'm called to lead a group or be, I will sometimes just take a minute, like a full 60 seconds, and just look around and make eye contact with everyone in the entire room. And then
Mhm.
I'll usually come up with some kind of a cliche like, was that good for you? Or something of that nature. Who called this meeting and what do you want to talk about? All that sort of a thing. And once people are at ease, then I can deliver a message that I want them to, start to take on and start to consider. But the next thing is that I get my energy and what to talk about next from the reactions of people in the room. I
Mhm.
never anymore stand up to deliver unless it's some kind of a training or it's something where there's a message that needs to be delivered and it has integrity in that message that needs to be complete. Mostly it's about how y'all doing today,
Mhm.
where you want to go, because we can create anything right here in this room right now.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I
Now,
think a lot of people don't realize the power of. To me, that's just being present. You know, uh, being distracted, thinking about what's going to come next, and what happened before the meeting, all those things just limit your ability to connect with other people. So I love that. That's good stuff.
Well, you're spot on, and it's not like I start out being grounded and connected. I intentionally make a lot of butterflies in my belly before I, get in front of people, and it might even just be like like today when we're coming on here. I've been so looking forward to having you as a guest. I think very highly of you, not only from what Jan had told us about in the original conversation, but the time that we've spent together, and that it kind of comes out all of your pores, who you are for humanity and who you are for people. And so with that said, like I will actually create the butterflies. I will talk to them and I will say, I'm not feeling you right now. And I just have this feeling about life. If I don't have butterflies, I'm doing the wrong thing or I'm doing it wrong, and
That's
there's times to have peace, there's times to meditate, there's times to go within. But when I'm going to go without, I want to live on the skinny branches out there. I want to, like, take some chances here and there, and then bob and weave, because we were talking about before, when you get bonked, Mike Tyson says everybody got a plan until they get punched in the
punching
nose.
them out. Yep.
Now what? I love that now what part of life. That
Mm-hmm.
didn't work. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of getting to that time. We typically manage every week, to increase each other's enjoyment of life for at least an hour and have a ball doing it. LaChelle, what was your experience like today, and what kind of message would you like to leave with our listeners?
Well, I have really enjoyed the conversation. I love where I'm able to be transparent and vulnerable. I feel that vulnerability is a superpower. A lot of people shy away from it because they feel like, it's not being perfect. But for me, I find that it connects you to people. They can resonate with your message. They can feel your message because it's something that's true. It's beneath the surface. It's something that, you can, it's like digging for treasure, right? So I feel the ability to be able to do that is very impactful, uh, because at the end of the day, I think we all can have a lot of these feelings or experiences, but because it's not talked about a lot, um, when it is, I think it really resonates with a lot of people. And many people don't have that experience because we've been kind of programmed to show the best side of things, right? The highlight reels. And when we talk about what goes on behind the highlight reels, I think that's when we really help people. um, I have this saying that I created. I was on Clubhouse and in a room with Les Brown, and he challenged us to come up with a quote that we would live by or whatever. And mine is a mindset for greatness is not having excuses, right? That's the way that you got to do it. You got to live beyond these excuses. And we can come up with all the blame around somebody did this or I didn't have that. But when you let go of those excuses, that's when things can change for you because you realize the power is with you. It's
Mm.
with you deciding how you want to show up. So I've enjoyed this time with you guys, just the whole ability to talk about topics that I believe are relevant for people to help them to get better, to challenge their way of thinking, to let them know that they're not alone. So many things we've covered, and it's just been a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Fantastic having you here as well. Jan?
Oh no, it's just I have nothing to say really, which is rare. Bill knows how rare that is. So no, it's been such a pleasure, and I love all that you shared, Lachelle. And I know that you make a difference in many lives.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Double from me. And I will tell you this, if I were to come up with a quote to live by, I would say, make your life about loving your friends, you know, make sure they know and they understand it. Get weird about it, you know. I mean, just really go crazy loving your friends and make new friends. And I want you to know I've met a lot of people. Um, I've got like 5,000 friends plus followers, about another 2,000 on Facebook, and I think I'm up over 3,000 on LinkedIn. But the whole point is that I'm not making great gains in terms of meeting everybody on the planet, and I love you all. I just haven't met you yet, you know. And
Amen.
we're gonna figure out what's going on with that one of these days. And I want to get out. I want to get out in a big way so that there'll be more of you that will be willing to see that if I can make any kind of a difference at all, anybody can. And that's very, very important to me. Jen, do you want to send our listeners home with our frequent ask?
Oh, sure. So I guess our frequent ask, and just my frequent ask is, is be vulnerable. And I know that people don't like the word authentic, but be authentic. What I perceived as authentic. Show up as you, and go out and call someone today and just tell them how much you appreciate them for who they are and that they are in your life. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Anybody, anything else?
I've loved that, and I would say, just show up. So many things that I've had opportunities because I just showed up.
Yeah.
A lot of times we think we have to show up a certain way, just show up. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, there's another aspect to that, especially around these holidays. This is for many people a very, very uncomfortable period of time. It's when they are very present to all of the loss that they've had in their life, and it's for other people, it's the opportunity to relive the horror of their youth with the original cast. And when you get back together, sometimes things come out that you haven't seen each other all year. So take some time to just let everyone know that you would be the last stop you want them to make before making a permanent decision about their life. And that is so important this time of year. Folks don't usually let somebody know when it's time for them to go. They leave a message or no message afterwards. And the folks that I have lost, I wish they had called me, because the ones who did call me are still here. So that's the end of it. We are lighting the candle, a world that works. We're passing the flame from candle to candle, hopefully all over the world, where we can really get back into the business of shamelessly and weirdly loving each other and having a good time. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can catch every episode of Lighting the Candle, as well as the rest of the network, at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.